Stevie. Thank you. But I get to share about myself. And I was telling my friends at my table that I don't usually share about myself, and it's really actually kind of difficult. So bear with me. I wrote this morning. But I'm really humbled to share it. And I hope that you do find some inspiration and some hope in the words and in my experience that I've had. And, you know, throughout my life, really, I've seen God's hand. It's just really evident in everything that's happened to me and is happening to me. And maybe I'll just start with a little bit about myself. If you don't know me very well, nice to meet you today. But my personality is pretty outgoing, pretty friendly, and I tend to be pretty independent. And my husband says I can be fairly stubborn at times as well. Okay, I'm proud of that. I'm good. But to tell you, probably dates back to the beginning. I'm the youngest of 3 children, and my brothers are 10 and 7.5 years older than me. So I was the little girl running around the house, you know, making it rough for them. And it was fun. I was raised in Oakland, 4th generation Chinese American. Can't order Chinese food in a Chinese restaurant to save my life. I can fake it. They have pictures. It's good. But my parents were divorced when I was 4, so I was a child of the 70s, and wore my key around my neck, and got myself in the house after school every day, and hung out at the park. And that year, my mom introduced me to the Nutcracker, and I just knew I wanted to be on the stage. So I started my 18-year love affair with the ballet studio. I was there 5 to 6 days a week, every week, for all of those years, and I loved every minute of it. So that was a big part of my life. Another big part of my life was growing up in the church. My brother brought me to Chinese Bible Church in Oakland when they were there, and I spent a lot of time there on the weekends. So I had 2 families outside of my own, my theater family and my church family, and I really enjoyed that part of my life. And it really kept me out of trouble, I think, right? Because we lived pretty moderately. My mom worked as a teacher's aide in the Oakland Public Schools, and you know, we had government assistance, which was great because I had hot meals at school every day. And it was just a life that was a protected life. I felt like being the youngest too, maybe that's sort of the perils of being the youngest, where they really never tell you when there's hard stuff going on. You just find out a lot later in life. But I had a pretty nice upbringing. You know, and along with that, I had a lot of freedom too. So I was independent and I had a lot of freedom because I had my own key. And I would jump on, you know, Aunt Clara would take me everywhere. It's AC Transit, for those of you in East Bay. You know, I take the number 57 down MacArthur from Oakland High all the way to the Oakland Ballet Studio every day, and take the BART to Berkeley, and I'll ride it all the way to the end, take a nap, come back. But you know, it was fun growing up, and my mom. The best thing about being my mom's daughter was that she was a professional usher. So I became the professional program girl, and I got to go to the theater with her every weekend, and I saw musicals and plays and the ballet and the opera, and spent a lot of time in San Francisco and Berkeley and Oakland, and just really relished that time. And it really grew my love for the theater and the arts. And so I started to study more acting and singing and dancing and doing all that stuff. I even got into some Hollywood productions and did some commercials, and there was a Chinatown pageant. So there was a lot of things in my life that were fun and good, but you know what? It was all really focused on me. And I realized that I really lived 2 lives. I had my worldly life, and then I had my church life. And those 2 things never really crossed. And there was a point in time when I got accepted to college. I went to Mills College in Oakland, where my independent mind could really go crazy, and I could dance at the same time. But that's at the point when I left church. And so there was a little break in there. And I kind of lost my track. I didn't really have God in my life at that point. But kind of turned out okay. I ended up getting a great job working in the fashion industry at Levi's, and you know, wrote speeches for the executives and helped our employees get out into the field and volunteer. So it's a lot of great stuff. And I'm just thankful for God for that journey, because He was with me the whole time, even though I may not have acknowledged it. I think I knew He was there. And I was kind of going to church, back to church, to career, you know, stuff. I think I was more like looking for a date than actually going for spiritual fulfillment. It was good. It was starting to get me back into church because I realized I missed it. It was such a big part of my youth growing up that I didn't have it now in my 20s, and I really needed more of that. So at that point, I did meet Albert, my husband, he was working in San Francisco as well, and we ended up getting married after several years. I didn't really think I was ready to do that, but in my plan, I'm kind of a control freak too. So I knew that at some point in my late 20s, I was going to get married. So, okay, well, if that's the guy, I guess that's you. So let's get married. It was kind of funny, because we were in the car, and his brother was preparing for his wedding, and we were talking about the wedding, and then I said, hey, so after your brother gets married, do you want to get married? It's okay. That's just how it is with me. Everything's kind of easy and simple. And so my timeline, I was on my timeline. Okay, I got married, and then, we're having a wonderful life living in the middle of San Francisco, and rent-controlled apartment with parking, and, access to food and great shopping, and just loving it. And then the year 2000 came along, and that, was the year of the Golden Dragon. Really important to have a child that year, right? Like everybody else in San Francisco. I mean, we couldn't even, I got pregnant, which was great, but we couldn't even get into the labor and delivery class because they were all full. So we kind of winged it, but you need to go, and the nurses tell you what to do, and so we're fine. So we had this wonderful little baby boy, and what a joy he was. Kenneth was born on September 10th, and he was the apple of everyone's eye because he was the first grandchild and the first grandson for Albert's parents, and that's a big deal for Chinese parents. So they loved on that kid, so it was a big deal. But you know what? This is kind of where my story changes, and this is this part of my story where I found that I really desperately needed God, and he was about to break my pride because I was living high, right? I had a big ego. Everything was great. But it was this point where this little tiny baby depended on me for everything. I knew I could do it. I could take care of him. But he started to get really sick. And about 3 months old, he'd have cold, he'd have an ear infection, and then the cycle would repeat itself month after month after month. We finally went to a specialist, a blood specialist, and saw his counts were low, but eventually at about 12 months of age, his counts came back to normal. I thought, no, it's nothing, he's fine. And then the colds and ear infections would happen again, cycle. And then finally, I came home from a business trip, and he was 18 months old, and just had this horrible rash all over his body. I thought, oh, we gotta take him in. So we took him in to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, this doesn't look very good, and this might be something more serious than we think. And she conferred with her doctors, and she said, okay. She made a phone call, and she called us into her office, and she said, I have an appointment for you to go to UCSF, pediatric dermatology, so that they can take a little sample of his skin, and we can do some tests, see what it is. So the very next day, we took him in, and saw us at the end of the day. It was kind of scary, because UCSF is a learning facility, so all these students came in, they had their cameras, I'm like, oh my God, okay, all right, just, scaring me, people. But they took the sample, and they told us that it would take a good 13 days for this special staining to be done. So I thought, okay, so I'm back in the office on Thursday, and, sitting at my desk, just, I'm kind of praying, like, okay, God, this is in your hands. I know, whatever happens because this is your plan for us. And looking out of the window, just clearly remember the scene. There are things that happen in your life that you don't forget, and I don't forget this. I was sitting at my desk, looking out. I had a view of Coit Tower, and the phone rings, and it's a doctor, and I'm like, oh, hi, what's going on? And she said, wow, early stainings have shown that he is positive for this disease called histiocytosis. Okay, I can't even say it. I can't even spell it. I'm like, what is that? And the next thing I remember her saying very clearly was, you have an appointment tomorrow morning to see the pediatric oncologist at the hospital. I'm like, oncology? He has cancer? What are you talking about, right? So it was all I could do to hold it together when I hung up. And I had to call my pastor. I sent out a prayer chain email to our church folks, and then I kind of went through the whole anger, that whole denial, anger, stuff. I went through that. And I was angry at God, I was angry at myself. I was like, why me? Why my son? Why did he get this cancer? He was, was healthy, he was born healthy, there was no indication that he was this sick, there's no, this kind of cancer in our family, is it in our genes? We don't know. It was a desperate time. And it was a time when I actually, I felt like God might abandon me, and so I had to quiet my heart, and I really had to listen to my pastor, I really had to listen to other folks who were talking to me and supporting me. And that night, I came home Friday with this binder, this like 4-inch binder of the protocol for the treatment of this disease, which, hits 1 in 300,000 children or something. And I would have to read it over the weekend and sign at the end to say, okay, you're not liable, okay, let's just do it. So, as I'm holding Kenny in my arms and he's sleeping, and he's a year and a half old at this point, and just said, God, I looked down at him, I said, God, this is your child. This is your child. I said, I thank you for the year and a half that you've given him to me. He's a blessing. I will never forget these moments. And whatever happens from this day forward happens because of you, and I trust you, and I have faith in you, and I know that you're in control of this situation. And I tell you, once I had that conversation with God, his peace came over me. And I felt like, wow, okay, I can handle this. I need to be a pillar for my family. My husband is a mess. Right? I need to keep it together. I need to walk through this and trust that God knows what he's doing. And so on Monday morning, we check into the hospital and immediately start chemotherapy. It's a multi-system involvement. His liver, his lungs, his skin, his ears, all a mess. It's in his bone marrow. And so we're watching his bone marrow carefully to see if he needs a transplant. God continued to send us angels. We had I had prayer emails from all over the world, from a prayer book in Ireland to, underground cell groups in China and North Korea. I mean, just, kind of just sending, as people were wondering how we're doing and that they're praying for us. And who are these people? Oh my God, this is wonderful. And just feeling God's love come to us from all over the place really helped, give me courage to continue on. And we even had our church members, and we do it here too, but they brought meals to the hospital because we were there for 6 weeks, and I never left. The nurses had to kick me out, so I would go outside and take a walk. I put on a bunch of weight because they bring the food, and Kenny wasn't eating, so I'd eat 2 trays. And then of course I get tired of it, and then these home cooked meals would come in, and it was just more than the meals. It was about the conversation. It was about the prayer time around the bed. It was about connecting with people. And I realized I couldn't do it alone. I couldn't do it alone. I needed these people in my life to help me get over this. During that first week, his white cell count dropped to 70. The normal range is 4,000. So he was confined to his room for a number of weeks, about 4.5 weeks. Couldn't leave the room. And it really was touch and go. We had a lot of surgeries, we had to remove fluid from his lungs, his PICC line got infected, just a bunch of stuff you don't want to know about. And I wouldn't ever wish it on anybody. But I know that with everything that happened, God was handling it. And he was handling us and holding us close to his heart. And my poor husband, he couldn't be there, right? He had to work full time. And then in the evening, he had been accepted into the apprentice program to be a stationary engineer. So in the evening, he had to go to classes in Hayward for 3 years to study for this apprenticeship. And so he was gone for a long time. But thankfully, God sent his parents. They were in the hospital with me for several hours a day. And then, of course, in the evening, we had folks from our church come. And then there were other families in the hospital who were in a similar situation, who had terminally ill children. And it was an opportunity really to bond with these families in our despair, and we were walking this journey together. We weren't alone. And I think without them, I wouldn't have survived. And every once in a while, a very sweet, a very bald child would pop their head into Kenny's room, and they'd laugh together, and they'd tell silent jokes together. And I remember one kid came in and he played ball with Kenny, and despite their own pain, they just find the joy in the moment. And they really taught me a lot about hope and what it meant to live in the moment and not to take anything for granted. Because you know what, these kids, their time is limited. They're not going to have time like I did to, accumulate stuff, to accumulate pride, to build their own little kingdom on earth. This is it for them. And a lot of these children that we met passed away. And it's horrible. But what they left for me was a lot of hope. And that was their gift to us. And I felt like Kenny, if God was going to take him in that moment, his gift to us was right there in that hospital, that he was teaching me about hope and joy and peace and faith, and being able to give that back to others was what he was teaching me to do. So you can tell I had a lot of time in the hospital to pray, a lot of time to contemplate what was going on in my life. And I realized really at the end of it, God was still there, even though, he let me pursue all of that, the worldly emptiness, which meant nothing really in the end of all of that. And it really took my son's suffering to turn me around and to see the cross. And I really believe, like I said, that it was purposeful. There's no accident that we're all here today. It's not an accident that we're meeting today. This is very purposeful. And I really believe that Kenny's cancer was purposeful. And he showed me that. God showed me that through several miracles that happened in the hospital. One of those, when Kenny was about 16 months old, I'd weaned him. I decided, it's time for him to just drink from the bottle. So I'd weaned him. But when he got sick, when we were in the hospital, he couldn't eat. He was just, got his chemo every day, and he was sleeping. So I just prayed. That first day I prayed. I said, God, if I could give my son some nutrition, please help my milk to come back. And the next morning, it was like I had a newborn. I was like, okay, so milk is here, thanks. I appreciate that. But I was able to provide for him. And he wasn't eating food, but he was getting mama's milk. And I said, thank you, God. He's getting something because he needs to build his immune system, to fight off this cancer. And so I was just so grateful for that. The second miracle that we saw, we monitored his bone marrow every single day. And I'll tell you, my husband will describe that whole procedure when they dig in there and grab bone marrow. That's horrible. But anyways, if it's not clear, if it's not white, pure white, then they know there's something wrong. But it was getting wider and wider and wider, and eventually the doctor said, I don't think he's going to need a bone marrow transplant. So praise God. Second miracle. The third miracle, Kenny's white cell count finally got back up to a normal range. And by about the 5th week, we were able to leave that room and go to the kids' playroom, and he could be a normal kid and play with the toys and just have a good time and smile. It was great to see him. And the disease had affected his hips, so he had a hard time walking. And so it was nice to see him finally moving around again, and exercising and trying to walk, holding on for balance. And then we finally got back home after 6 weeks, and then of course, 2 days later he spiked a fever, so we were back in the hospital for another 13 days. And so it was a cycle for about 2 years, at home in the hospital, at home in the hospital. And every day we were giving him about 18 different medications. I had to grind up the chemo and put it in a syringe and shoot it in his mouth. And, but thank God, he's doing okay. And the next miracle that happened is that he hit his 5th year of no cancer. And so, when you hit your 5th year, that means the disease is in remission. So, praise God. He's great. And the doctors called him a miracle baby because his chances of survival were 10 to 15%. And, I didn't believe that though, because I was actually angry. That first week we were there, the Make-A-Wish people came into our room. And, I know Make-A-Wish because, they go to the kids that are going to pass away soon. So I didn't think about it was affecting us. I'm like, why are you here? You shouldn't be in our room. They're like, we need to talk to you. We need to know more about Kenny, and we're going to plan, some kind of thing for him. I'm like, no, we don't need to do that. I was really in denial. But I really think I felt that God was in control and that this was going to be okay and we were going to make it. So, but eventually, Make-A-Wish did throw Kenneth a third birthday party with Lucille and JT Snow. We had a great time, and riding in a limousine, and I really appreciate that organization, and we try to give back to them as often as we can. But you know, I think the lessons that I learned from all of that was that I just needed to have faith in God, and I needed to move out of my isolation and that mindset of I can do it all on my own in order for me to grow, in order for me to let God grow me. And you know, I think to myself, what if I chosen to do it alone? What if I chosen to do it alone? I think about my husband's mother, who went through her second round of breast cancer while she was mourning the sudden loss of her husband the month before. And you know, she's just a very, very private woman, very traditional Chinese. In fact, she didn't tell anybody about Heather's illness, so she wasn't going to tell anybody about her own illness. And it broke my heart because I couldn't talk to her because we spoke a different language. And so she went through this 9 months of, I think she was really depressed and really missing her husband, going it alone. And you know, I prayed for her, I prayed over her. And I don't know if she knew God. She died 9 months later. And you know, it just breaks my heart that someone would walk alone in this world in that despair without anyone next to them. So you know, imagine her isolation. You know, if there's anything that you take away from what I'm saying in all these words, is just know that you're never alone, never alone. And I believe that in my moment of desperation, God did give me peace in lots of different ways. You know, lots of different ways I found His peace, and He has now blessed us beyond my own expectations. Because today it's my passion to pass those blessings forward, like I mentioned, and every day God does open the door for me to share how the blessing of my son's cancer, opened our eyes to the science of nutrition. And changing our nutritional routine has really made some serious positive effects for Kenneth's health. And today he's 14 years old. He's 11 years in remission. He stands at 5 foot 10 inches. I mean, I have to wear heels now and look at him eye to eye. And you know, and despite all of the post-chemo side effect warnings, like he should have mental delay and physical delay, he might develop diabetes, I mean, a whole bunch of things, right? He has 0 side effects. And the doctors can't explain it. They just call him a miracle baby. I give all glory to God. You know, I thank God for His healing hand on this child, for showing us this nutrition too, that's helped him detox and get healthier. And I just feel so blessed that I can share that with everyone now. And I've learned so much about just trusting God, and learn to lean on Him through the hard times and through the difficult journeys, because those are going to happen. And life isn't going to be a piece of cake, right? We're going to have the hard stuff too. But I am so grateful that God is on my side and that I can lean on Him. Oh, I want to leave you with a verse that has meant a lot to me, and I'm so glad it wasn't that one. I actually had to double check. Oh, I have to do it again. It's actually from Psalms. You might know it, 29:11. When you don't know what to do, wait while I open the way before you. Trust that I know what I'm doing, and be ready to follow my lead. I will give strength to you, and I will bless you with peace. Thank you, everyone.